Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has rejected any idea of giving up land to end the war with Russia. Donald Trump has said an eventual peace deal could involve Ukraine and Russia swapping territory. Trump and Vladimir Putin are due to meet in Alaska next week to discuss a possible ceasefire. A joint statement issued by the leaders of France, Britain, Italy, Poland, and the European Union backs the peace initiative, but in Ukraine's capital, there's little support for allowing Russia to gain ground.
Independence Square in the heart of Kyiv. For some time now, it's become the site of an unofficial memorial to Ukrainian soldiers killed fighting against Russia's invasion. This woman lost her son in the war.
No soldier will agree to surrender territory or withdraw troops from Ukrainian territory. I think all these flags were not installed here in vain. They symbolize the lives given for Ukrainian land and for every family.
It's a sentiment shared by a majority of Ukrainians.
I understand that people are suffering, but how does it look? They actually attacked us, and we're just supposed to accept it? Okay, take our territory and leave us alone. This would be a bad step for Ukraine's independence, because Putin won't stop there.
A lot of Russians have died, a lot of Ukrainians have died.
These women are reacting to comments by Donald Trump that Ukraine may have to cede territory in return for a ceasefire with Russia.
It's very complicated, but we're going to get some back. We're going to get some switched. There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
While Trump was not clear on which territories would be swapped, Russia currently controls about 1/5 of Ukraine, the darkly shaded area to the east. Making territorial concessions is a non-starter for the Ukrainian president.
Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier. Ukraine is ready for real decisions that can bring peace. Any decisions that are against us, any decisions that are without Ukraine, are at the same time decisions against peace.
But polls show a growing number of Ukrainians, at least 1/3, think losing land instead of more lives is an acceptable concession.
As a person who loves her country, I don't want to compromise with myself. But seeing all these deaths and knowing that my mother is now living in Nikopol under shelling and my father is fighting, I want all this to end as soon as possible.
At Independence Square, another funeral for another fallen soldier defending Ukrainian land from Russian invaders. Another reminder of what's at stake ahead of the talks in Alaska.
We're now returning to our top story, those initiatives to secure a peace deal in Ukraine. And now I'm joined by John Hardie, Deputy Russia Program Director at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Ukrainian officials are skeptical about next week's summit, and Vladimir Putin has used talks in the past as a delaying tactic. Do we have any reason to think that Putin is taking these talks seriously?
Well, I think from the get-go and still now, Putin's view is that peace is acceptable if it means Ukrainian capitulation. Like I said, I don't think that has changed at all. I think he might modify his demands slightly, but ultimately his overriding objective, which he's held for 2 decades plus, is to make Ukraine a vassal state. And I don't think that's going to change, no matter the efforts of President Trump or Witkoff or any other official.
So in your view, Russia's goals are quite clear, but the elephant in the room is kind of Ukraine. They're not invited to the talks. So to what extent can the U.S. force a deal upon Kyiv if they're not there for the talks to begin with?
I think the Kremlin would very much like to enlist President Trump's help in imposing these draconian terms on Kyiv. I think Putin actually overestimates how much leverage Trump has over Zelenskyy. That no Ukrainian leader is going to accept capitulation. And we've seen just today Zelenskyy ruling out Putin's demands to trade territory. So I think what President Trump is better off doing is focusing on ways he can align with Europe and Ukraine toward a deal that's actually achievable, then use pressure to try to get the Kremlin to agree.
Now, throughout multiple rounds of these talks, Putin has ruled out holding direct talks with Zelensky. And at this stage, what is his goal by refusing to meet the Ukrainian leader?
Well, first, Putin does not see Zelensky as an equal, and he has repeatedly tried to delegitimize Zelensky in the eyes of the West, hoping for a more pliable government in Kyiv. And as I said earlier, I think Putin would like to reach an agreement with Trump over the heads of the Ukrainians and Europeans, and then impose it on those other parties. So if the meeting with Zelensky and Putin were to happen, the Kremlin would like it to be at the end of the process where they're essentially dictating terms to the Ukrainians.
Now, do you think that the Russian president is more confident that he can secure a deal with Trump in this second administration than he was during previous administrations, during the Biden administration, for example?
Well, I think Putin now sees that Trump is less encumbered by kind of restrictions from Congress. That being said, I don't think President Trump has any interest in a bad deal that would hurt American interests. And of course, if he were to try to impose the Putin plan on Zelensky, that would be very much damaging to American interests. And we should all remember that this war is whatever agreement might come to fruition, if one does, it's unlikely to resolve the fundamental struggle between Russia and Ukraine, and a third war is pretty likely. So I think we should keep that reality in mind and focus on stealing Ukraine for that eventuality.
Now, from the European perspective, many leaders are worried that they are being sidelined in these talks. Moving forward, if a deal is reached, are European leaders right in being worried that they are no longer necessarily playing the same role that America or Russia is at the table of international diplomacy?
Well, I think realistically, it's not always possible to have a leader from every single European country at the table with, say, Trump and Putin and Zelensky. But certainly the Ukrainians should be involved. The slogan, "Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine," should be a watchword for the Trump administration. And I think before any sorts of proposals are made or accepted to the Kremlin, the U.S. administration needs to be in very close coordination with European partners.
All right, that was Jen Hardie from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.